Hi. Greetings from the Great Sage. Before we start, please subscribe and hit the notification bell icon and don't miss any contents. This is the light novel of that time I got reincarnated as a slime. If you haven't watched previous video, I will leave the link on the description box or you can click here. Let's start. This is Tensura Light Novel Volume 16. Tensura Light Novel. Volume 16. The End of the Game. Chapter 1. The Betrayal. Beretta vs. Dino. Dino stood up and tried to fulfill his assigned role. He hated working, and he was reluctant, but he could not refuse the request from someone he had known for a long time. Above all, he was driven by a compulsive notion that he had to do it. However, his actions were unexpectedly interrupted. Dino-san, what are you doing? Dino knew that his plan had failed the moment he heard Shinji's voice. He had planned to finish everything quickly so that no one would notice, but was interrupted by the timing of divine intervention. No one should have been able to read Dino's actions, but there was a blunder. Beretta grabbed Ramrus's hand just as he reached out to grab her. It all happened instantaneously. If Shinji had not spoken, Dino would not have been noticed. What do you think you're doing, Dino-sama? I'm honestly surprised. I didn't expect to be interrupted. Good grief, I was so wary because of your presence and was looking for an opportunity to relax. Give me a break, Shinji. You've got all the makings of a big shot. Dino complained, but he meant what he said. He knew that there were only a few people in this world who could have seen through what he was doing. Dino had been so confident, but now it was all a waste of time. Dino let out a long, depressed sigh, then gave Shinji a glare. Then, shaking his head, he turned his gaze back and looked at Beretta with narrowed eyes. Shinji and the others finally understood that the situation had become more serious than usual. But that didn't mean they could easily do anything about it. Alpha and the others moved to surround Dino, while picking up Ramrus from Beretta's shoulder to protect her. Ramrus, who had been unable to keep up with the sudden turn of events, seemed to be trying desperately to make sense of the situation as she looked alternately between Beretta and Dino. Shinji distanced himself from Dino to take care of Vesta. However, Shinji's companions, Mark, and the others, remained in place. They seemed to have fallen asleep in spite of the situation. It was obvious to everyone that this was abnormal. Hey, Dino-san. You did something, didn't you? Shinji shouted, to which Dino replied lazily. Well, yeah. But really, if you're resisting my power, then your skills must be pretty good too. I'm impressed, Shinji. I'm not happy about the compliment. Shinji replied as such, even though he was actually a bit flattered. Dino only shrugged his shoulders. He had complimented Shinji, but did not look at him, as if he did not care. He only looked over Beretta's shoulder to Ramrus and spoke. Ramrus, I'm sorry, but can you cooperate with us? I don't want to get rough with you, and I promise to take good care of you if you cooperate. Look, we don't want to shed wasteful blood on each other, right, so, why don't you just come with me? Dino said this with a serious expression on his face. Needless to say, Ramrus's reaction to this was rejection. You're the one who's talking out of your mind. What the hell are you doing? If you keep talking like that, Rimura will beat you to a pulp when he comes back. Ramrus was borrowing the authority of others as always, but she was not wrong in her words. So Dino could only laugh bitterly. That's right. I figured you would say that. But I can't justify that as enough for now. After all, I am still the Watcher, even if I don't want to be. When you say Watcher, do you mean from the 7 primordial angels who were of Veldanava-sama's inner circle, correct? Actually, I used to be one of the primordial angels. After Feldway and the others left for the other world, I was assigned to watch over the surface. You're got to be kidding. No, this couldn't be more true. For Ramrus, this was a shocking fact that she had only just now learned. She was always thinking that Dino was as much of a liability to the demon lords as herself, not realizing that he was actually an important figure. Ramrus could never have imagined that Veldanava, the creator god, had named him himself. Incidentally, Ramrus had also been named by Veldanava, but she had forgotten all about it due to being reincarnated too many times. She would remember everything once she became whole, but she did not know when that would be. I thought that the originals had all left. No, that's not the case. When the surface world became peaceful, Veldanava-sama began to seek the stability of the other world. I think you know that. Yeah. Ramrus's behavior became a little strange, but Dino just let it slide. It was too much of a hassle to get into it, and he didn't want to explain it anymore. So he took it, as if Ramrus was in the know and continued the conversation. So, Feldway and 3 other originals were assigned to that mission. There were 3 of us left, including myself, and we worked as Beldanava-sama's hands and feet. Even you, it's fair for you to be suspicious, but I was a serious man back then. But then a certain incident happened. That, coupled with various internal circumstances, corrupted me, and I went from a seraph to a fallen angel. My other colleagues are the same way, and now there's not a single decent primordial angel left. Wait, you left out the most important part of the story, the part that is the most important, and the one that bothers me the most. Ramrus couldn't hold back her retort, but Dino just sighed in annoyance. Shut up, it's too hard to explain. It's not important to me, so I'll let your imagination fill in the blanks and we can start negotiating. It's just too absurd to leave something like this to the imagination. That was the impression of everyone who was listening on the spot. However, Dino was notorious for his lack of patience, so everyone gave up, thinking that it would be useless to ask for a further explanation. As it was, they chose to focus on what Dino had to say. So, what do you mean by negotiating? Ramrus asked on behalf of the group. It's exactly as I said. If Ramrus is willing to cooperate, then I swear I won't touch anyone in this labyrinth. But if you refuse, then there's no other way. I'll have no choice but to kidnap you, even if it means killing everyone who gets in my way. There's no way I'll cooperate if you do that. Well, I suppose you're right, but that's not really a problem. The best outcome is to have your compliance, but even in the worst case scenario, as long as you can seal the labyrinth, it's fine. This is not what you want, is it? Who's commanding you to do this? Well, I don't know if I can tell you that. I mean, I thought Guy was the only one who could give you orders. Well, I guess it's something like that, but that's not quite right either. Guy and I are on equal footing, so why should I take orders from him? Whatever, that doesn't matter. Oh no, it's important. Ignoring Dino's rant, Ramrus began to think. If it isn't Guy, then that's right. It's Feldway, the leader of the First Order. He must have come back from the other world and approached you while you were wandering around. You couldn't resist him, could you? Detective Ramrus's version of mystery guesswork was truly frightening. She was always making all the wrong inferences in her reasoning, but somehow, she always ended up at the correct answer. And this time, she got it right once again. That's amazing, it's actually the right answer. The operation, which Feldway had put most of his resources into, was executed to perfection with 2 main objectives. One was to assassinate Masayuki. And the other was to destroy the labyrinth. Destroying the labyrinth would have been a daunting task, and there was a risk that the plan could go completely awry. Feldway believed it to be important to secure Ramrus in order to prevent that from happening. With the idea of eliminating all elements of uncertainty, Feldway formulated the battle plan, and Dino merely acted in line with that. You parted ways with Feldway because you were a delinquent, right? That guy looks like a first-rate honor student, so you two don't seem to fit together. Hey, I'm not a delinquent. I just like being lazy a lot. Well, it is true that his orders were annoying, so I was glad that he was gone. Dino explained that even without any contact, their past relationship still remained. I see. Then that means the attackers are the originals. That's not good, you should just ignore Feldway's orders and come over to our side. Dino smiled at Ramrus, who was saying the most outrageous things. But he still couldn't nod his head in agreement. It's unfortunate, but I also have my own situation. In fact, Dino himself found it incredibly strange that he could not disobey Feldway. But even so, Dino simply rejected Ramrus's proposal. It seems that you're serious. That's quite a lot of nerve. I'll deal with you myself. I'm a pillar of the octagram too, and I'm determined to protect this place until Rimura returns. Ramrus made her determination clear. So it seems. Honestly, I don't really want to work. Being able to live in a world where I don't have to do anything is truly ideal, but it can't be helped. Unfortunately, I can't be merciful. Don't worry, I won't take your life, so do your best to get rid of me. Dino returned to his usual easygoing and languid expression and replied with a wave of his hand. In this way, the negotiations were concluded. The time for conversation was over, the battle had begun. Get him, Beretta-chan. Ramrus excitedly shouted, as if influenced by some energy. Of course, Ramrus herself never fought. That was as Dino had expected, so he decided not to make fun of it and confronted Beretta to see what he could do. The control room turned into a battlefield. It was a fairly large space, but there were many obstacles such as desks and chairs. It was not an environment suitable for fighting, and Ramrus wanted to relocate to a different environment. However, this was unacceptable from Dino's point of view. Because there was a high possibility that Ramrus could escape. Therefore, Alpha and the others were busy retrieving the important equipment while the two were facing each other. Without paying attention to their surroundings, Dino and Beretta began to fight. Dino, out of nowhere, pulled out a huge sword that was as tall as he was. This great sword was called the Kuzurakiba, Crumbling Fang. It was a single-bladed sword with a thick body and appeared to be so powerful that the weight alone might have been enough to break an opponent. It was a heavy weapon that was heavily in contrast to Dino, who was dressed lightly in his normal clothes, breastplate, and robe. But even so, it looked very natural and elegant. What is the performance of that sword? In terms of existence value, it's a million. Alpha couldn't hide her surprise at the report. What the hell, a mythical grade? Even if it's Dino, that's a foul play. Ramrus shouted an unintelligible complaint, but Dino just ignored her. Dino repositioned his Kuzurakiba above his head. Beretta, on the other hand, was bare-handed. However, his body was made up of the magical steel doll that Rimuru had made. Now that it had become well acquainted with Beretta's mana, it had been transformed into a living magic steel, adamantite. Its shape was still the same as when Rimuru had made it, but its strength was incomparable. Moreover, since it was imbued with Beretta's magical aura, ordinary weapons would be useless. Beretta was full-body weapon of legendary grade or higher, the hardest existence in the labyrinth. Even so, Dino casually swung down his large sword. Beretta did not hesitate to sidestep and avoid it. Not having a weapon in hand was not a disadvantage, but this time the situation was bad. Beretta's existence value was over 400,000, which was almost equal to Dino's. However, unless Beretta was armed with mythical-grade weapons, he would not be able to compete properly. Beretta, who was empty-handed, concentrated on evading Dino's sword blows instead of taking them head-on. If Beretta was hit by the blade, he would have instantly been destroyed. And even worse. Dino Sama's existence value has increased from 400,000 to 2 million. The total is 3 million. How overwhelming. Alpha reported desperately. However, Beretta remained unfazed. Ramrus wasn't surprised either, as if taking it for granted. I don't know how you did it, but you fooled the existence value meter. I guess that means there's still room for improvement. Also, Alpha, don't refer to Dino so politely. Hey, it's fine. I'm still a demon lord too, right? Shut up. Beretta-chan, you don't have to be polite either, so hurry up and unleash your true power. Let that fool taste heaven's judgment. I don't have that kind of power, but if it's an order, then I shall do my best. Beretta was as hard-working as ever. Even though the existence value was only a rough estimate, there was still a severe difference of over 7 times. Despite feeling inwardly that Ramrus could really be unreasonable, Beretta responded to his master's expectations by watching Dino closely. You're not easy to deal with either. I don't want to hear that from my enemy, but I will not deny it. Beretta responded while focusing on evasion, circling Dino. There was no need to be defensive, as long as the attacks didn't hit. The key was to think differently. Beretta's whole body was a weapon. His bare hands were not at a disadvantage. On the contrary, they could be used as various means of attack. On the other hand, Dino was lightly armed, and the only thing to watch out for was the big sword. The conditions were the same in that a hit would result in a heavy blow. Because of this, he still had a chance to win. Beretta thought as much and had been looking for opportunities. As a chaos doll, Beretta was very good at changing attributes. Using his unique skill Double Crosser, he could constantly switch attributes one after another and search for Dino's weaknesses. He was facing Dino while calculating every move in order to make the situation work in his favor. Dino, who was on the receiving end of the attack, was not happy. Geez, you're a dependent of the Black Line, aren't you? I've heard that your kind are one of the best when it comes to dirty fighting tactics. I am honored by your kind words. Who's complimenting you? Even dialogue was used as a weapon as Beretta tried to overturn his disadvantage. There was no room for error. Thanks to the fact that Beretta was not impatient, he barely managed to maintain the status quo. That's all for today. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Please check my other YouTube videos. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit the notification icon and don't miss any updates.